Sean Paxton, the homebrew chef, joins me to talk about beer and food pairings. This is BeerSmith Podcast number 173. This is BeerSmith Podcast number 173, and it's late June 2018. This week, Sean Paxton joins me to discuss food and beer pairings. Thank you to this week's sponsors, Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine. They're running an amazing deal right now. Get 20% off your subscription when you use the offer code BeerSmith2018. Every issue of Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine is packed with articles for homebrewers and beer lovers, and you can read my new column called Ask the Experts. Take advantage of the special deal when you use the offer code BeerSmith2018 at beerandbrewing.com. Again, that's beerandbrewing.com. And also the new BrewVision thermometer from Blickman Engineering. This interactive wireless digital thermometer connects right to your iPhone or iPad and lets you remotely monitor and record temperatures. You can download your recipes right from the BeerSmith cloud and send updates and alerts as you brew. Get the BrewVision Bluetooth thermometer, another great innovation from BlickmanEngineering.com. Again, that's BlickmanEngineering.com. And finally, BeerSmith 3 was just released. BeerSmith 3 adds mead, wine, and cider recipe support to the BeerSmith platform, along with new integrated water profile and mash pH tools. Dozens of new features, including cloud folders, updated databases, support for fruit juices and honey, as well as new Whirlpool hop options. You can download a free 21-day trial of BeerSmith 3 from BeerSmith.com and run it side by side with your old BeerSmith 2 software to compare. Again, download your free 21-day trial now from BeerSmith.com. And now let's jump into this week's episode. Today on the show, I welcome back Sean Paxton, a.k.a. the Homebrew Chef. Sean is a professional chef and expert in beer food pairings, and he runs an online beer and cooking site at homebrewchef.com. Sean, it's great to have you back on the show. I think it's been over a year now.
Yeah, I was trying to think of actually the last time we did this. It's been a while.
So what have you been up to the last year or so? I know you've probably been doing a lot of cooking, right?
Definitely a lot of cooking, a lot of web stuff, a lot of some new businesses, and working on a whole bunch of new projects. It's been a real fun year so far. It's been a little crazy, but we had the fires in Sonoma and Santa Rosa, and that was kind of nuts. But you live up there in that area, if I recall. Last time I saw you there. Yeah, the fire came within about a mile of my house, so that was kind of surreal. We had to be evacuated, and it was pretty nuts. Makes you appreciate where we live a little bit more,
So I understand you've been doing some work with beer and hot sauce lately, and I think you even have your own hot sauce. Is that right?
Correct. I've been. It's been a real fun. So basically, last year near me, there's a great beer festival called Boonville that Anderson Valley Brewing Company throws on every year up in Boonville, California, kind of northern California. And they make some amazing beers. And my friend Cal from Humboldt Hot Sauce and I kind of wanted to do a beer hot sauce. And we talked more and more about it. And the more we started thinking about it, we kind of crafted what we call our NorCal mole. So, I'm a huge fan of Mexican food, and I'm a huge fan of like Oaxacan mole, and, the AHA dinner that I did in San Diego, we did kind of a version of a Oaxacan mole. We did about 37 gallons of sauce just for that dinner for 1,500 people. And
so I'm thinking kind of like a chicken mole you get from a Mexican place, maybe?
Kind of. But we wanted to kind of do our own little twist to it. So we wanted to be somewhat traditional, but yet, when you think about the borders of Mexico and California, those were changing for quite a while, and to think about immigration and just flavors and what we have here as far as ingredients versus what they have in Oaxaca, Mexico. So, and to really start thinking about, the regionality, of a sauce like that. And when you really start to get into the understanding of flavors and building those, elements of, with the spice and the heat and the seeds to make the consistency and the texture and that nuttiness. And then, some of the fruit, some of the other like prunes and other raisins, and how the sesame seeds and all those flavors start to weave into each other. You get this really cool product, but yet, there's not a lot of mole available. It's a hard thing to make. It does take quite a while to make a mole.
What is a mole? I don't even know. I've eaten it, but what is it?
So basically, it's a sauce that has both fresh and dried chilies. It has, it's a moderate heat, but depending, there's several different styles of mole, and there's several different varieties of mole from all the different kitchens. And I think it really when you look back to it, there was a lot of seasonality that really started to change things a little bit. And then also the time of year it was made and what was available. So there's sesame seeds and walnuts and peanuts and plantations. You start to get into, it's not just all the ingredients, but it's also toasting all the ingredients and mixing all the ingredients together and pureeing them and soaking them. And so basically it creates this ultra thick sauce that you can use, and then they'll thin down with a little bit of stock. I like to use an oatmeal stout or a chocolate stout. And usually there's chocolate in the sauce as well for a Oaxacan style. But there is green moles and yellow moles, so there's a lot of different varieties of mole. But what we wanted to do with this NorCal mole is, one, to make a hot sauce. And so we actually used the hottest pepper in the world, the Carolina Reaper. It's about 1.6 million Scoville units all the way up to 2.2 million.
Wow.
They've actually been rated, Ed Curry, who created this out of Pucker Butts back east. This hybrid, it is pretty crazy. It's probably the most insane ingredient I've ever used, because, it's like weaponized pepper spray is 2 million Scoville units. So just to give you an idea. So we're really in that realm of, flavors and textures. And so what we wanted to do with this was to create something really interesting and kind of fun. So we actually use Anderson Valley's oatmeal stout, since we kind of derived the whole concept there, and I love that stout.
Hold that up again. Which is that? Your hot sauce beer bottle there?
So this is
here. Pull it back just a little bit so you can see it. There you go. That looks like yeah.
So
Cal Mole beer hot sauce. What makes it a beer hot sauce as opposed to a regular hot sauce?
Well, when you look at beer, it has a lower pH than water, which is perfect, because the whole thing in the game is to really understand, not only food science, because our shelf life of our hot sauce is about 18 months. So, to really see what you can do to lower the pH, since beer, it's a fermented product, that kind of helps. We don't use any water. So beer is really our big, ingredient that really adds our base level of flavors. With those flavors, with an oatmeal stout, you get that roast, you get that chocolate, you get that coffee, you get that oatmeal to kind of smooth it all out and really add a nice foundation. And then we use Carolina Reapers, and we actually cool off the Reapers with habaneros, just to really make sure that the sauce is approachable, because there's really two major different types of hot sauce. There's the vinegar hot sauce, and then there's also the hot sauce that's so hot that you really can't taste for a couple days after you try it. Mm-hmm. And my whole thing with flavor, I really want people to taste it and to really create something different. And, with this mole, I wanted it to be, you can use it on food, but you could also use it in food, because, there's a big distinction of trying to make your own mole. Well, in this bottle, we have all this great flavor and we have all these great ingredients. There's actually 48 ingredients in this bottle. So as far as I know, from a hot sauce standpoint, that might be the most hot sauce ingredients I've ever seen. But each one has its own purpose and its flavor and its reason for being there. And, from both trying to be authentic and also to be something really unique. We use Cho chocolate. We use tangerine, lime, orange, and calamansia juice, which, that's the mandarin orange kumquat fruit from the Philippines. to really add kind of a unique twist to it and give it a little bit more complexity on the citrus side. We add in Cho Chocolate, which is a local chocolate company here in the Bay Area, and they just make a wonderful chocolate. We use their Ecuadorian cocoa nibs that really add a nice complexity and depth to the sauce. And so it's almost like a steak sauce, and it's almost like, it is a mole. But what's fun is you can add this to your beans, and it adds a nice depth to your beans. I call it Mexican umami because it really does have a lot of those extra fifth dimensional flavors where the roof of your mouth really starts to like, wow. And it's not just heat, it's a lot of flavors. And so that was our first hot sauce, and we started making that about a year ago.
And what, I want to talk about food pairing. So what kind of food and what kind of beer would maybe go best with something like this?
Great question. It's, to be honest, I haven't found many things it doesn't go on. Believe it or not, hot chocolate is a real fun.
You must like hot sauce. I do too. I love hot food, so.
It adds another dimension. I've loved hot sauce for many years, and now it's really fun to actually make my own sauce and actually sell it to you guys because, again, this is where, for me, it's a real fun thing that, I try to take all the effort and all the science and all the other pieces of the puzzle to make a wonderful mole, and now you guys can have it in your fridge and use it pretty much whenever you need it. And, I've been using it on, like, if you take a pork roast, like a pork butt with a bone in, score it, rub it down with this and a little bit of salt, let it sit overnight in your fridge wrapped up. And then if you take a couple onions that are sliced and peeled and some garlic and basically an oatmeal stout, wrap it up and throw it in your fridge about 250 degrees for about 12 hours, you get this amazing pulled pork that you basically get a mole style pulled pork. You can use this in tacos and burritos. You could do a pulled pork sandwich with it. You could use it into a chili. You could basically, it becomes a whole bunch of things, and everything that I've had it on is pretty insane. I also love it where you could rub like chicken breasts or chicken thighs down with this hot sauce. And again, you could braise them, you can grill them, and then you have an instant chicken mole. You could also put this mole into your beer. So the fact that it's a lower pH and it's shelf stable, you can actually add this to your stout or oatmeal stout or imperial stout and make a Mexican style mole stout. So you can actually add this pre or post fermentation. You could do it by the glass, or you can do it in a larger volume. And then it's also a great medium to cook with and pair with and use. So it's really kind of a fun project because how many different ways I've been able to use this, I've been kind of blown away. I even have a chocolate sauce that you could put it over ice cream or a dessert. Really makes it kind of a fun hot sauce into a chocolate sauce. And the depth of flavors with the orange and the tangerine and the chilies and all the other things, it really adds a nice little twist to your feast or your meal or your dish.
What kind of beers pair best with hot foods or hot sauce in particular? You're talking about a mole sauce. So what kind of beers pair best with a mole?
So this one, I love a good porter. I love a stout. A smoked porter will also be really nice. We actually roast poblano peppers before we put them into our kettle. So that would also be a really nice pairing. You could easily get into a nice brown ale with all the melanoidin undertones. That will kind of bring out some of the sweetness in the chilies and especially the dried chilies that we use. You could go on the citrusy side. You want something with, a pretty good girth and balance, especially with the spicy, like maybe even a double IPA that has a lot of like orange tangerine style hops. And you
maybe a dark IPA. I don't know.
I'm not a huge fan of that style.
Yeah.
I find that the acidity or the astringency of the roasted malts, especially with, the bitterness of the the roasted malts, you get that bitter and astringent and becomes kind of overpowering. I've only had a few that I like, and a few of them aren't made anymore. So you could play around with it, but it's a tricky style. And the idea is to kind of add either a counterpoint, to compare or contrast. And so that's kind of where, you could play a little bit on the safe side, even like, a Vienna lager, like the Mexican style, like Dos Equis, like with a Vienna lager or Negro Modelo, something like that too. That's really smooth, but yet, refreshing and has that nice malty undertone. I think anything with that will be really good with this particular hot sauce.
Excellent. Well, I understand you got a pepper festival coming up. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So it's kind of fun because at this year's Boonville, we made our second flavor, which is our Yellow Tie Racer, which is actually made with Bear Republic's Racer 5 IPA. And since I live in Sonoma, it's a perfect hot sauce use right there, because this is a beer that I drink quite often, and I love the orange kind of undertones to it and the nice maltiness. And we basically made a yellow Thai curry. So completely different again than your standard just, chilies and vinegar and, maybe some water in there. And we wanted to use this to make this sauce. And now there's a hot sauce festival up in Auburn, California on June 23rd. And we're going to be there pouring our sauce in Upper Sacramento area there in Auburn. And it's been real fun because they just did a YouTube kind of video where it's kind of like the Hot Ones. Sean Evans does a real cool show that if you like hot sauce, it's a fun one to watch, because he basically takes celebrities and has them try 10 different hot sauces, gradually getting hotter and hotter and asking them some really fun questions. Well, the guys over at the Pepper Fest, they actually made a video, and our hot sauce is featured, and you get the chef's impressions of our hot sauce, and it was real positive and real cool to kind of see, and all the different flavors that he's tasting, and from a chef's perspective. So yeah, there's a lot of real fun stuff. And so these guys kind of reached out to us early on, and we want to start doing more projects. And so I've been making a mole hot sauce infused honey, and I make hop salt and some other stuff that I've been selling. And now I can sell it all there at the festival, as well as these hot sauces and some other stuff is all available on my website, homebrewchef.com. And we can ship right to you. So we're working on getting in stores and distribution and all that stuff. We're already in a few different locations. Bear Republic actually has the Yellow Tie Racer at both of their pubs here in Sonoma County and Roanoke Park and Healdsburg. And makes it real kind of fun because it's right there on the table and you can try it. And we're working with the chef to get it on the menu and playing around with some different recipe ideas. And it's been a lot of fun.
How do the beer and food pairings change for something like a Thai hot sauce versus the mole hot sauce we were talking about earlier?
So it's interesting, especially with this Thai, we have ginger and galangal and lemongrass and kaffir lime leaves and turmeric, which actually are kind of fun because those are all anti-inflammatory too. So they're good for your joints if you stand a lot, or, arthritis kind of things, where it just kind of helps take that edge off. And these also have very bright, citrusy flavors. We use a lot of lime juice in this one to really give it that Thai yellow curry kind of undertone. And this one we use a fatali pepper, which is a little different than the Reaper, where the fatali is very similar to like a habanero, but the heat's really up front. It's not a pepper that builds. It's just like, boom, there it is. And then you get all these citrusy notes. And so along those lines, a real citrusy IPA like the Bear Republic Racer 5 would be really an awesome IPA to pair with. But, there's so many great IPAs, and depending on where you guys live, also like a Belgian Wit would be really fun. That little twist with the yeast and the coriander and the orange peel, which, both we use coriander in our hot sauce too. So that'd be a really nice pairing. But you could also go with even like a Saison or a Belgian triple. I love those yeasty undertones with Thai food. And that's what's great, because you can actually use this in a soup. You could add this to, a curry. You could do this into a stir fry. it's not just hot sauce again. We're really trying to do something where it's great on all those foods, and even like a dip for, fried dumplings or spring rolls. I mean, you can really do a lot of different things with this. And what I like to do is actually, you take a couple tablespoons of this and you put this into like a mayonnaise, or I'm actually working on a recipe that I've made a few different times, and I use some fish sauce as well as coconut oil and make an aioli with that. And it is incredible on fried fish, fish, chicken sandwiches. You can use tofu, eggplant, pretty much anything, dip fries into it. It's a pretty awesome sauce. And it's something completely different that I've never seen or tasted before. And I'm really excited about it because, again, both from the pairing standpoint and the cooking standpoint, there's a lot of different options to cook with all this stuff. Like even you can take this hot sauce and just slice garlic, olive oil, pan like that's cold, low heat, kind of roast the garlic almost like, till it's nice and soft and just starting to get crispy. Then add some prawns, shell off or shell on. I prefer the shell because it actually gives a little bit more flavor to the prawns. And depending on how crazy you want to get, what size you want to get, until they're almost cooked through, and then just a little bit of this inside the pan, and you get the best prawns. I mean, they are incredible peel and eat prawns like that. So again, it's really fun. A whole nother dimension that I can actually be in your kitchen without being in your kitchen, and, all the great flavors I've shared with all these listeners who've been on, all the different meals that I've done across the country. And, now there's a way you could actually have my product in your kitchen.
Are you still doing food pairing dinners? Are you still doing dinners with food beer pairing? Yeah. Have you done some recently?
I just did a couple, and I'm actually been working on a beer documentary. So it's taken up some of my time this year, filming all over the country, and we're preparing this really big feast. And
yeah, I was going to say, why don't you tell us about that?
So it's been really fun. 111 Entertainment Group kind of reached out to me, and they asked if I could be a part of a documentary, and we've been talking since last year, and it's kind of a neat, there's no title yet. The 3 titles that they've submitted to their legal team basically have been shot down, but there's 3 threads in this documentary, and it's really fun because the first one's all about the Cicerone and the Master Cicerone exam, and I've been privileged to be an examiner for that, and I really respect what Ray Daniels has done with that whole program. And
interesting. I didn't know you were heavily involved with that.
So in the beginning, it was a lot of fun to help with, judging and with the oral exam and the written exam, and to really get into what people were tasting and pairing and their choices and decisions, especially with the written and the.
Real quick, could you explain to folks what Cicerone is? Just so I'm not sure.
Sure.
We did an interview with Ray Daniels, but it was a couple of years ago now. Not everybody may know the program.
So basically, in wine, we have a sommelier, and there's a master sommelier program and test that you can take. And, it's really understanding the history, the beer or the wine styles and everything else. But we really, up till, just several years ago, didn't really have anything that was equivalent for beer. And, beer is just, if not more complex than wine, with more ingredients and the style and water playing such an integral role, as well as the hops and the malt and the yeast and all the different pieces. We can talk days about this. But then, Ray really helped the whole concept of how do we treat beer and understand beer in a better way. And so he created the Cicerone program. And with that, there's it's basically a sommelier for beer. And, there's a certified Cicerone, there's now an advanced Cicerone, and then there's the advanced Cicerone. And the advanced Cicerone exam has been rated one of the hardest exams in the world, both from the tasting and the oral piece to essays and understanding beer styles, to be able to write a whole menu and, pair beer with it and cost it all out, and, the volumes of beer and the alcohol percentages. I mean, there's a lot of real interesting things. And then also to be really understanding of, how beer's poured, how beer's made, how beer's served, and it was interesting because kind of on an offshoot, I had dinner with Ray Daniels and Lisa Morrison and Alan Sprintz up in Portland, and we were at a very well-known beer restaurant, and we had a beautiful triple, but the glassware that came, it wasn't rinsed properly. So the beer right away, there was no head, and the aroma was just that of a cleaning detergent. And I just looked at Ray, and I'm like, this is kind of ironic, isn't it, that you do what you do, and here we are, and this is a perfect example of why you do what you do. And so it's a really neat program. And so a third of the film is basically two gentlemen who are studying and practicing and getting ready, and then actually taking the Master Cicerone exam. And it's a really interesting, in-depth look about what that exam is and how hard these people work, because I think to this date, there's only 17 Master Cicerones in the whole world. So wow. When you really look at how many people have tried to take this test, and it is a very difficult test. I will ascertain it is hard questions, and you really have to know your stuff. There is no BS. I mean, it is, you know it or you don't. And Ray has done a phenomenal job with his whole team to really craft this exam and how it's executed, and all the people who try to take it. It is a really cool thing. So that's a third of the film, and then another third is my friend Tanya Cornett from 10 Barrel. I've known Tanya for about 10 years now, and we've, I think, made probably 8 or 9 beers now together. Our first beer that we ever brewed together was actually a Berliner Weiss that has now become her whole crush series over at 10 Barrel. So it's been really kind of neat to see all the awards and medals that she's won, and all these wonderful beers that she's made along the years. And we just released a new beer called Mia Gusta, which is kind of a Mexican mole imperial milk stout, so kind of a twist on what I did with the mole hot sauce. Mm-hmm. But then we have also done the Paxton project, which was an imperial quad that was aged in port barrels, and I mean it's a 16.6% beer. Kind of took some of the ideas from Dogfish's 120 IPA and the continual feeding of sugar throughout fermentation, and some of the other fun things that we did with that beer. And so they're actually filming right now. I was actually on the phone with them earlier this morning. They're in Rome right now. So it's been kind of fun, and they're doing a whole quest for her, sour beers and what inspires her. And then the last third of the film is me and kind of my story and what I've been doing, and everything from, looking at today and how we brew and the flavors that are in our beers to before we were even a country, and to really get into some history and really diving into, what was it like before refrigeration, and what was it like without electricity, and, really there was no thermometers, and how was food not only safe to eat and, safer, the water wasn't safe to drink, and beer was really at every table, and spruce beers and why they had spruce beers. And so it's been a real fun journey, and just got off a pretty crazy trip all over the U.S. and 11 airports in 12 days. And we have some more filming to do. I'm actually doing a collaboration beer with Mayflower Brewing Company, which I'm really excited about, and trying to do a old school style English ale that we'll do like a first and a second beer and put it in different casks and flavor them different ways, and kind of play around in, an old school technique with some modern, twist to it, and crafting a whole dinner around it and all that. So yeah, it's been real fun.
That's awesome. Well, I wanted to cover a couple more topics here. One of them was, I want to get back to food pairing, and I want to talk about barbecue, but how do you go about really pairing your food flavors and beer flavors so they do work together? What's your general approach?
So there's a lot of directions you can go. And I usually choose, because when you think about food and beer takes longer to make. So I usually start with a beer as an inspiration, looking at all the different beer styles, the different flavors in beer, looking at the time of year that our event or your event is happening, to think about, is it really hot outside? You probably don't want a big giant imperial stout or barley wine. You might want something lighter like a Hefeweizen, or there's some amazing Pilsners now on the market that I think really deserve the credit that they're due, as well as, a blonde ale or, a Belgian wit, depending if it's summertime. And then to use, your sense of flavor, and taste, and really taste the beer and see what you're tasting and kind of go off that, as far as, okay, this beer, I get some citrus and I get, some nice light malt undertones. And, you can kind of judge the intensity of the beer, to kind of understand, how strong and flavorful it is. And that kind of sometimes can go by the alcohol content, but then again, there's the sour beers, especially with some of the different things from like Russian River or the Ware Barrel, or even out of Belgium with the different lambics and not just a traditional goose, but, some of the other styles of beer that, have different fruits or other things added to them. And you can kind of use those, to kind of inspire your, twist and flavors. And then to start to really think about, okay, now what do I want to make with this? And so thinking about, certain beer styles will lend themselves more to fish or chicken, lighter flavors versus, other beers that might still be a medium or moderate level alcohol content, but yet you can still play up, lamb or duck or, all the other proteins and starting to really look at that. And then to really dive in deeper to, how do you want to prepare it, and then the technique that you want to use to cook it, are you using sous vide? Are you using a grill? Are you sauteing? Are you braising? So there's a lot of different techniques there. And then ultimately, how are you going to use the beer? Do you want to use it as a salad dressing? Do you want to use it as a braising medium, or, putting it into a bag with, a meat and then sous videing it, and then it kind of makes its own sauce and stock at the same time, all the way through to, do you want to put that beer into a cake or a bread and serve that along with the meal or at the end of the meal? So there's all these different great ideas, and that's kind of why I've created homebrewchef.com, and over at my chef's table or the online cookbook, it really is kind of a fun twist, with my prior podcast, we've talked a little bit about that, but, what's really fun with my the online cookbook is, you can start to search by different beers that you want to pair with or cook with. I'm actually, just like you have updated your software, I'm updating my software.
Oh, cool.
And starting to use some different things. And so we're adding in a whole bunch of stuff on the back end that will really expand. And actually, if you could,
we'll go to Homebrew Chef here.
The online cookbook. So if you go to the cookbook tab.
Okay.
So we broken it all down by different styles. And if you just,
pick appetizers or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
I'm bringing this up on the screen. Most people are listening on the audio, but that's okay.
Sure. So
but what I'm showing is the website, homebrewchef.com, right? Isn't that it?
Yep. And so what's really cool is you can get into these different recipes, and, I really try to think a lot about, not just the pairing and the cooking with the beer, but also the execution, and to try to make it as easy as possible for you to cook at home. When I look at flavors and our time and, keeping our family healthy and happy and making some really neat recipes, some recipes, both in cookbooks and online, you can get into, basically, like click on the egg roll one. That's a real good one. I love a good egg roll. The second row there.
Second row.
There we go.
I got it. Yep.
And what's really fun with this recipe is you can,
That one's for members only. That's okay.
So this is where I try to do stuff, but then also I need to make a living too. And for less than a pint of beer a month, so $4.99 a month, you can get access to all these recipes. And right now I'm actually over 500 recipes that are online, and menus, and everything's cross-linked, and it's really kind of fun. But with these different recipes, what is fun is that you can actually scale the recipe to how many people you want to serve. And so, if you have a family of 4, well, there you go. You can make it for 4 people, or, you're having some family or friends over, and you can get into a whole bunch more, and you can scale the recipe all the way up to 2,000. So actually, I use this now for a lot of my different beer dinners as well. And then afterwards, from the feast, all the recipes are online for everybody to play with. So, it's really fun for me to really share what I do, and the time and the consideration and the care I put into all the different ingredients. And some of the ingredients might be hard to find, so I actually have links where to find them or have them shipped right to you, as well as more detailed information. I've been working actually on this website now for over 2 solid years, and been adding in a whole bunch of new stuff. And when you start to look at the brevity that's there, and I know that all the recipes that are online, there's no off flavors, there's no bad pairings, there's different beers that are suggested.
So, I assume all these have suggested beers that go with a particular recipe, right?
Exactly. Almost every recipe there has beer in it in one way or another. And
I know you're also, we didn't talk about it much earlier, but you're a big fan of putting the beer ingredients or those flavors right into the food, right?
Exactly. It's to me, it's really fun to be able to use malt and malt flour and malted barley flour into different baked goods, into different breads, all the way through, making a hop sugar, and then using that hop sugar to macerate sliced strawberries, and then to use that with a barley malt flour shortbread to make a strawberry shortcake, essentially. And you can do that with like a wit curd, like a wit beer curd. And then you can even do like a malted whipped cream with that. And now you have all these comparing and contrasting flavors. And, just recently I saw a beer that was a strawberry donut IPA with toasted coconut, and that would be a fun beer to pair with this dessert, So, this is how crazy you want to go and what your tastes are and everything else. And to me, it's a lot of fun to expand, everything from cinnamon rolls to a perfect, Cubano sandwich to, an Italian beef, that you could use a nice brown ale or a toasted brown ale in there, and get some more flavors with that melanoidin going on in that classic Chicago sandwich, all the way through to, a real fine dinner where, you can do, poached seafood, all the way through like a water zooey, which is a wonderful Belgian dish that I had in the town of Ghent, and all my travels to South America. And, I've done empanadas and different croquettes, and there's a feijoada out of Brazil that I just absolutely love. That's a real fun, large feasting dish that you can make for your friends and family. And it's just a real fun dish to make for everybody. All the way through, I've made ceviche with IPA many times, and adding that in there. And, with the new hot sauces, there's a whole bunch of recipes that use the hot sauces on there as well. There's actually a tab for the cookbook with just those recipes.
Nice.
So it's been really, really fun, and to really show people not only how to use beer in food and to use the hot sauces in food, but also to really make a nice meal for your friends and family. And I think it's such an important thing because we're really, the only species on this planet that can cook. And I think we forget that, and we're the only species on this planet that know how to brew, and the gift of,
my dogs haven't forgotten it though. They enjoy leftovers probably too much. Well, Sean, I got just a minute or two left here, but maybe say just a little bit. It's summertime. Maybe say just a little bit about barbecuing with beer and pairing beer flavors with your barbecue.
So the biggest trick is, I have some rub recipes and stuff and some different sauce recipes on my website. But, to really take your rub and to put it onto whether it's your ribs, your chicken, your pork butt, your brisket, and rub it in really good, wrap it up tight in plastic wrap, and let it refrigerate for 24 hours. Biggest thing right there will make your barbecue that much better, and your bark and your crust on your barbecue that much better. And think about the wood that you're using, to look at beyond just hickory and oak and play around with
you don't barbecue over a gas grill then?
Sadly, no. You just don't get the same flavors and the smoke ring. And you could add, a little smoke box with some wood chips. But I am a firm believer, and I have a green egg, and I love it. I also have an indirect smoker that I use, and I have a Weber. I'm not a huge gas grill guy. I know
no.
But again, with those flavors, and you think about a wonderful brisket, I actually have a chocolate ancho rubbed brisket recipe that is just to die for. And I have a stout barbecue sauce that is.
Yeah, you can send me some of that brisket. That would be great.
I'd be happy to.
I'm a big brisket fan. Yeah.
Oh, and when it's done right, man, it is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer too, where you talk to your butcher. I have a great relationship with my butcher, and so just give me the whole package. I'll take care of the rest. And, I don't do a whole lot of trimming because all that fat just kind of oozes into the meat. And you could just do the classic salt and pepper all the way through to your own special rub. And then what I like to do is, once it's done, and your sides are important too. I have a Scotch ale, baked beans, and you can play around with different black beans to pinto beans. So I have several different bean recipes on there, and even like a honey mustard potato salad made with Sierra Nevada's pale ale that, and their mustard, which is also a really good product. And so you can do, your classic sides, if you will. And then
which I was going to say, which beers go best with barbecue?
So this is where, you can do the compare side and do smoke on smoke. And so, a good Rauch beer could be really fun, especially depending on the style and of smoke that you're using and the style of barbecue, from Memphis to, the Carolinas to Texas to Kansas. I mean, they're all very different style barbecues, more tomato based, more vinegar based, and even Texas, more, the salt and pepper, sometimes a rub, so that's one thing to think about, and then, I do like a good porter or a stout because I feel like that roast and those darker malts really lend themselves to smoke very well. That's why you see like a smoked porter or a smoked stout.
Uh-huh.
So without the smoke, those beers work really, really well. Especially because you got the richness. Sour beer and smoke, you have to be kind of careful with. You would think that with the richness of those meats and like a good pulled pork, you might want to do something that's, sour to kind of cut it. But, those flavors are sometimes a little tricky, especially with the smoke. It could be kind of off-putting. I like a good brown ale. I think a brown ale is sadly a beer style we do not see enough of. It's one of my favorite pairing styles, especially with barbecue. That nice malty.
Yeah, it's been I think it's been pushed out by a lot of the IPAs and stuff,
Yeah, and I like IPA. Don't get me wrong. I'm pro hop, but at the same time, trying to think outside of the box and not just having the same beer styles. A good German alt also works really well with barbecue.
Oh, that's good too, yeah.
It's a beer style that we kind of forget about. And even something crisp and clean like a Kolsch, or, I'm even thinking, some of the Belgian brews, like a good Belgian double, with that malty kind of dried fruit undertones. And if you have the right barbecue sauce, especially, something with apricot or prune or plum, it could be really fun too. I actually have a recipe where I do take a goose and I use that to marinate some baby back ribs, and kind of tenderizes the meat as well as gives it a nice flavor. And I did that with a peach barbecue sauce. So you can, and it, just because it's smoked doesn't mean that that's all you're tasting is smoke. My friend Pete Schlossberg from Pete's Wicked Ale back in the day, He's a barbecue judge, and there was one time where he brought 8 different joints back of barbecue from Kansas City, and the next day we shared all this great barbecue, and it was really fun to try 8 different style of ribs and briskets and pulled porks and burnt ends and lamb riblets and all this other stuff side by side, and to really see the level of smoke and how some hardly even tasted like smoke. So when you think about intensity and flavors, that's also another thing to think about. So, I mean, this is where it's so much fun, and, practice and trial and error. And I've done a lot of that for you with my website to kind of give you a lot of ideas. I actually have a whole tab on just all the barbecue recipes and all the different sauces and side dishes you can do with it, as well as, play up the whole concept of German Hefeweizen with that banana clove flavor and actually make a banana cream pie with it.
Nice, Sean.
A perfect dessert. So that's what's fun. And, grilling and smoking and barbecuing and being outdoors and cooking with fire, it's something that I've relearned and gotten back into, because it is really fun to have the unpredictability and, a little bit more attention to the fire, and not just what's in the pan, but, how you're cooking and the temperature. And it's really fun to think about wood and the flavor that the wood brings, and, and just to really enjoy what we can do that no other species on this planet can do, and just have wonderful food and share that with our friends and our family, and, the simple things in life that we forget about sometimes, Well,
Sean, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you so much for being here. It's been great having you again.
Well, thank you so much, Brad. And it's great to be on, and always happy to do it again.
And again, my guest today was Sean Paxton, a.k.a. the Homebrew Chef. And you can learn a lot more about food and pairing and beer at homebrewchef.com, which, of course, is Sean's website. Sean, thank you. Thank you again. Great to have you.
Great. Thank you, and have a great day.
Well, a big thank you to Sean Paxton for joining me this week. Thanks also to Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine. Every issue is packed with great information for homebrewers and craft beer fans. Take advantage of their fantastic sale and get 20% off when you use the offer code BeerSmith2018 at beerandbrewing.com. And also Blickman Engineering, creators of the innovative new BrewVision wireless thermometer. Remotely monitor your brewing system from your iPhone or iPad. Record data, set alerts, and grab recipes directly from the BeerSmith cloud. The BrewVision thermometer, another great innovation from BlickmanEngineering.com. And BeerSmith 3 software just launched in time for Father's Day. BeerSmith 3 adds mead, wine, and cider support, new Whirlpool hop options, support for high-altitude brewing, and a whole lot more. Check out BeerSmith 3 and get your free 21-day trial today from BeerSmith.com. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a great brewing week.